Before we get started off with more of our beginner's style Pilates class, this will be very gentle. I just want to talk a little bit about breathing. So within Pilates, we do have a certain way of breathing which allows us to really switch on the core muscles. So it's really important to have an exhale breath when we're supposed to have that, as that really allows us to also protect the back. So by switching on some of our core muscles like our obliques, by sliding the ribs down towards the hips, we're making sure that we're not arching into the back and we're actually finding strength within the muscles rather than just finding that extension and maybe hurting your lower back. So our breath work is an inhale through the nose. We send that down into the rib cage and then we exhale out through the mouth. It's quite a strong exhalation, which allows us to, as I mentioned, slide the ribs down, switching on the core muscles. I also want to mention that it's really important to even be thinking about drawing up through your pelvic floor muscles. So those muscles along the inside of your pelvis, almost as if you're stopping yourself from going to the toilet, and also drawing the hip bones across the body towards each other and in towards the spine. So drawing the belly button towards the spine, finding that scoop at your lower abdomen. So we'll get started off supine, so laying down on our spine here and doing an exercise called lift foot, helping us to just heat on those deep abdominal muscles, so the hip bones across the body towards each other. So laying down, the feet will be planted down, the knees bent, and the feet and the knees are at hip distance apart. So with this exercise, we find an exhalation as we lift one foot up into tabletop, and then we inhale as we lower back down. So we exhale to lift, and then inhale. So we're finding a little bit of heat within our lower abdominals here. And trying to also make sure that you're drawing the head of your femur, so your thigh bone, in towards the hip socket. So rather than feeling quite loose within the hip area, we're trying to draw it in. So we're using a muscle called our iliacus muscle to help to draw the head of the femur bone in. So you're finding that at the front of your thigh, you can feel those muscles moving as you lift up the foot and then lower back down. Last two. Now changing up our breathing, because this will be lift and extend. So now we use an inhale breath to lift to tabletop. Then we exhale as we extend through the leg, and then inhale back in and exhale to lower back down. So again, the reason why we use that exhale breath is because we're drawing the leg away from the body. So we're trying to use that exhale breath to make sure that we're not just going to arch through the back as we extend through the leg. So we inhale, and then exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. We'll go 2 more times, starting to feel a little bit more heat creeping up through your abdominals. Then lowering back down, taking the arms up towards the ceiling, the pads of the hands facing down towards your knees, or if it's more comfortable on your arms, you're welcome to just have the pads of your hands facing towards each other. So this exercise is called arm preparation. Again, it allows us to find that heat within the core. We're sliding the ribs down towards the hips, but want to make sure here when we're extending through the arms above the head, we're using an exhale breath and we're really trying to tighten the core rather than an inhale breath and just trying to extend through the back. So as you can see here, my torso is staying nice and still. As I reach the arms up, I take an exhale and then inhale in front of the chest. Trying not to flare through the rib cage here. The torso is nice and steady. The belly button is down towards the spine. The core is really switched on. So if your shoulders are quite flexible, then you may be able to touch the floor behind you. But as you can see from my flexibility through my shoulders, when my core is switched on, I can't even come very close to touching the floor. Last 2 and 1. And then hands go behind the head, the elbows just in your peripheral vision, so out nice and wide to open through the chest. Abdominal curls, so we lift on the exhale breath, gazing at the knees, and then we lower back down as we inhale, drawing the chin in slightly towards the chest, so we're protecting the neck, supporting here. We'll go 3 more, lifting, lowering, 2, and then 1, lowering back down our oblique curls. So a lot of the time with our oblique curls, we think that we have to rotate and take the elbow towards the opposite side. But really we're trying to keep the elbows out nice and wide, and we're just taking the shoulder or the rib cage towards the opposite side. So we lift and rotate, then come back to center and lower. Lift and rotate, back to center and lower. We lift on the exhale and then inhale to lower back down. So it's technically 4 movements here because we're lifting and rotating, then back to center and lowering back down. But we just still have a 2-part breath. And 4, 3, 2, and 1. Back into center, lowering through the head and the shoulders, taking the hands down, walking the feet in a little bit closer towards your bottom for our pelvic curls. So the core is still gently switched on. We're thinking about drawing up through the pelvic floor muscles and the hip bones across towards each other and in towards the spine, but also with the main focus of this exercise being strengthening our gluteal muscles, so through our bottom. So we want to tighten through the bottom and lift on our exhale breath. So we lift as we exhale, drawing the pubic bone towards the belly button and starting to peel through your spine all the way up onto your shoulder blades. We take an inhale breath at the top, and then we exhale to roll through the spine, making our way back down. And at the bottom, we bring the pelvis back to neutral. So we lift on the exhale breath. We inhale at the top, and then exhale as we lower back down, taking a breath in at the bottom and resetting. So we want to make sure with our pelvic curls, we want to make sure that the knees are still at hip distance apart. So we're using our inner thighs to make sure that the knees remain as they are, rather than allowing the thighs to draw out to the sides. For our next exercise, we will be doing something called openings with our pelvic curls, where we will be opening the knees out, but it will be very controlled rather than just allowing the knees to flop out to the sides as we lift and lower. So just getting those muscles nice and warm. This next time we're going to stay up and do 10 openings. So we're going to lift up into our pelvic curl. Now with our exhale breath, we open through the knees out wide and then inhale to hip distance. Exhaling and inhaling. So we've got 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, making sure that your hips are staying up nice and steady and still, not rocking back and forth or side to side. 1, back to hip distance, lowering back down. We'll do that again. So we'll roll our way back up The hips are steady here. They're not swaying from side to side or rocking back and forth. But we're going to open, close. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Back to hip distance. We're going to lower back down. We'll go one more time. So rolling up, opening on the exhale, and then inhale to hip distance. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Lowering back down and into a gluteal stretch. So just our figure 4 stretch is where we elevate one foot, take the outside of the ankle onto the opposite thigh, pressing the knee away from the chest, or taking your hands and threading them through the supporting leg and bringing that closer in towards the chest. We'll go over to the opposite side now. So just swapping and choosing your option. We'll start to release and work our way up into a seated position. So you're more than welcome to just use your hands for support and lift up. Otherwise, rolling to lift, planting your feet down. And this next stretch is called armchair stretch. So we take our hands behind the thighs, either taking a hold of the hands, the wrists, or the forearms, and just starting to round through the spine, trying to press your belly and your chest further away from your thighs and melt the head down. So you're stretching through the posterior chain of your body, so the back of your body here. And then releasing, making your way back up and over onto your hands and your knees. So we will be finding a plank on the knees here. So to find that plank, we walk the knees slightly back on the mat, drawing the pubic bone towards the belly button, tucking the bottom under, making sure within our plank position that we're not allowing the hips to fall too much and just finding that arch, exaggerated arch in the lower back, or we're not piking through the hips, so we're not even using the core at all. We're just finding that lovely long line from the knees all the way up to the crown of the head and making sure that we're drawing the chin in towards the chest rather than gazing out in front of us. So finding just that lovely neutral position within the neck, finding that stretch at the back. And also we want to make sure within this position that the shoulders aren't hunching up towards the ears. So the shoulder blades are drawing down and back, and we're using a muscle called our serratus anterior to make sure that our shoulder blades are drawing in towards the rib cage. So our shoulder blades, that's the muscle that they use to help to draw into the rib cage. And if it's quite weak, then we will find that the shoulder blades will be winging and will be really pressing down through the chest. So we want to make sure that they're hugging in nice and tight towards the rib cage. When we exhale in this position, we also want to make sure that the ribs are sliding down towards the hips, helping to keep the core on. Starting to release from the position and come into a setup for some push-ups. So for your push-ups, you may even just like to be on your knees in this figure 4 position and just lower the chest down, then lift back up. Otherwise, to find push-ups, we're just going to be doing it on the knees or this position. So on the knees in our plank position, we have the hands out a little bit wider than shoulder width. Then we send the knees back, drawing the pubic bone towards the belly button, tucking the bottom under. We lower down as we inhale, 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 and then exhale to lift back up. Inhale, 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 and then exhale. We'll just go 3 more. Last 2 and 1. And then into our prayer stretch. So knees either hip width or a little bit wider. We melt the hips back to the heels and walk the hands out long in front of the body, finding that lovely stretch here. Otherwise, if that's too much on your shoulders, you're welcome to have your arms out a little bit more loose, so nice and comfortable here. Or you can take your hands around trying to find your toes or your ankles, otherwise into that quite active stretch. And for our last stretch, we'll find a twist on both sides. So we'll thread the right arm underneath the left arm here. And you're welcome to remain in this twist as you are. Otherwise, taking the hands together into a prayer position, stacking the elbows and trying to lift up through your chest. Over to the opposite side now, planting the hands down, then threading the left arm underneath the right, and again either choosing to remain as you are or into that prayer position, stacking the elbows and shining through your chest. Coming out of your stretch. Hope you enjoyed that very gentle beginner's styled Pilates class and enjoy the rest of your day. Namaste.